Domesticated species is one which has been tamed by another species. Well, until we get an invasion from Mars, we shall not be tamed by another species. All we can do is to try to tame ourselves, that an oligarchy tries to tame ourselves. But the oligarchy still remains wild. I mean, however much it succeeded in domesticating the rest of the race, it must remain wild. And this was the part of the fable, the dramatic part of the fable of Brave New World, is that the people in the upper hierarchy, who were not ruthlessly conditioned, could break down. And Charles Darwin insists that because man is wild, he can never expect to domesticate himself, because the people on top will always be undomesticated and will sooner or later always run wild, because the people on top will always be undomesticated and will sooner or later always run wild. Well, I think there's a good deal to be said for this this point of view in regard to the permanence of any dictatorship.
I'm worried about a relationship that seems to exist between cost, consent, and control. If a government wants to control its people, of course its job will be easier if they are more willing to consent, and the job will be correspondingly more costly if the corresponding consent isn't there. Could you make a few remarks about the economic feasibility of introducing biological controls of the sort you talk about?
I don't know. I mean, wouldn't it, I would have thought in some ways it would be cheaper than maintaining very large security forces and concentration camps and so on. Just as in asylums, chemical control is a great deal simpler and cheaper than physical control. I mean, the bad old days of straight jackets and manacles and so on required quite a lot of people to handle the insane, whereas the tranquilizers seem to require much fewer. I mean, that you can get equal results with simpler and certainly pleasanter means.
About a relationship that seems to exist between cost, consent, and control. If a government wants to control its people, of course its job will be easier if they are more willing to consent, and the job will be correspondingly more costly if the corresponding consent isn't there.
Well, it's getting a little warm, isn't it? That seems to be a completely windowless hall, isn't it?
This is part of the conditioning process, I'm sure. This is part of the conditioning process.